Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, Iran is running out of time as the president has given them a Tuesday deadline to make a deal with the United States. Plus, a U.S. service member was successfully rescued after an F-15 fighter pilot was shot down late last week, and unfortunately, violence striking downtown Wilmington over the weekend. We've got a lot to get into. All the details coming up. And a good Monday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand in your favorite podcast app by simply searching for the Nick Craig Show. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. We appreciate them for their continued support. Melissa Gott and her team, visit them online, lawgroupnc.com. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. It is set to be a busy International News Day. We'll get into those details here in just a couple of minutes. However, we will start off on the local side here in southeastern North Carolina, as there were two different stabbings 2 minutes apart on Front Street over the weekend. More questions than answers this morning, unfortunately, as according to the Wilmington Police Department, early Sunday morning, Saturday night into Sunday morning, two stabbings happened. One at 12:10 a.m., the other at 2:10 a.m., the other at 2:12 a.m. The first occurred in the 100 block of North Front Street, the second in the 0 block of North Front Street. The victims were transported to the hospital. We have no idea how many victims there are at this point. Police have not shared any details on the victims, their conditions, the identities of those individuals. No information about potential arrests. They do note that, however, the stabbings were unrelated and isolated. And I will just use this as an opportunity to remind you once again, when you have violence like this that occurs, especially in a city as small as Wilmington, it kills our local businesses. It hurts them more than you can possibly imagine. When individuals many of which across the eastern seaboard will be traveling for summer, when they are flipping through social media and see two people stabbed or two different stabbings taking place in downtown Wilmington over Easter weekend, it is not something that sparks individuals to go, you know where I need to go? Wilmington. And for locals, where does it push them? Pushes them up into the Ogden area, where there's a lot of explosion with bars and restaurants and more leisurely activity. It pushes them towards the Cargo District, which is, yes, still downtown, but a little bit separated from some of the chaos and the insanity that unfolds in and around Front Street with all the main drag there through downtown Wilmington. So this is very bad for business. It is very bad for the residents of the city of Wilmington. We are, of course, continuing to await additional details. I'm working my sources within the Wilmington Police Department. I've got some information, but I'm not comfortable repeating it or reporting on it this morning. So we'll keep an eye on this to see exactly what is going on. Unfortunate to see, especially as we get ready to head into the much busier summer months for tourism, which, I know a lot of locals, complain about tourism, complain about this, complain about that. It is one of the reasons that all of the shops are here, all of the businesses are here, because of the strong business that they are able to do, the large amount of customers and money that they're able to pull in during the summer tourism season, which can essentially extend them throughout the remainder of the year. So again, two stabbings early Sunday morning in downtown Wilmington. We'll await additional details from the Wilmington Police Department. You heard about this first on social media. If you follow me over on X or the Nick Craig Show on Facebook, you would have seen this late last night. So if you're not already following me over on those platforms, would highly encourage you to do so. Again, those details on our social media platforms, the Nick Craig Show on Facebook and Nicholas M. Craig over on X. Today is set to be a busy International News Day across the nation, and time is running out for the Iranian regime as President Donald Trump has set a Tuesday deadline for Iranian officials to come to an agreement, to come to a deal with the United States, or he is threatening to essentially send the country of Iran, the Iranian regime, and unfortunately most of the Iranian people back to the Stone Age with strategic strikes on their power infrastructure, which we've seen him threaten in the past, talking about leveling their bridges and other infrastructure, potentially going after their oil supply, as well as President Donald Trump has seemingly lost all patience with the Iranian regime. And I'm sure the situation that unfolded late last week before we got into the Easter weekend only exacerbated the situation as Iranian ground forces shot down an F-15E fighter jet on the East Coast. It was about midday on Friday when that took place. That sparked, as you can imagine, an immediate search and rescue mission for the two pilots that were piloting that craft. One of the individuals recovered within just hours of the jet being shot down. The other, a search and rescue mission that lasted until late Saturday night, early Sunday morning here on the East Coast, with the United States officially and successfully rescuing and extracting the one missing crew member of that American fighter jet that was shot down. President Donald Trump posting on Truth Social just after midnight Easter morning, quote, "We got him. My fellow Americans, over the past several hours, the United States military pulled off one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history for one of our incredible crew member officers, who also happens to be a highly respected colonel, and who I'm thrilled to let you know is now safe and sound." The New York Post has a phenomenal write-up today as to how this operation played out. I don't like necessarily reading a long news article, but the New York Post obviously had a lot of very good information in this because they lay out this mission that took place. So I want to read through just a little bit of this. It reads, "The United States rescued a missing F-15E airman deep inside Iran with an incredibly complex and daring mission that involved SEAL Team 6, a CIA ruse, and a hastily constructed forward airstrip in hostile territory, as well as patrols of friendly aircrafts that gave the Air Force colonel, the individual who was stuck behind enemy lines, the cover that he needed. A life-or-death race between U.S. and Iranian forces to find the seriously injured weapons officer over the last 2 days culminated in the crew member's extraction by America's most elite commandos and a firefight with local militia that were hunting for him, according to a report from the New York Times. The unnamed officer, who was shot down on Good Friday in southwestern Iran, had hid out in a mountain range and managed to climb a 7,000-foot ridge to evade capture for 36 hours with just a handgun for defense, while American MQ-9 Reaper drones pounded nearby Iranian forces with missiles if they got close to his position, according to reports. The article goes on, and a source told the New York Post he evaded up a 7,000-foot ridge. They've been whacking dudes at chasing him all day. It was nuts, according to the one source. In an effort to confuse the Iranians, who put a $60,000 bounty, more than 10 times the average household income within Iran, on the officer's head, the CIA pulled off a diversion on Saturday, planting fake intel that he had already been rescued and was being driven out of Iran, according to the New York Times. The operation involved landing multiple transport aircrafts inside Iranian territory just south of the city, some 200 miles inside the country. A U.S. Air Force landing strip was set up close to the city, which houses many of Iran's missiles and army bases, nuclear facilities, and the last of its F-14 fighter jets, of which I'll note there are very few left. Two of the aircraft, believed to be MC-130J Commandos, specialized high-tech transport planes, became stuck at the airfield in Iran, and 3 more aircrafts were dispatched to pick up U.S. forces left stranded there. The two MC-130Js, each worth around $100 million apiece, were demolished in place so they would not fall into American hands. Photos from Iran show the burned-out wreckage of multiple aircrafts believed to be those U.S. planes. A total of 4 such helicopters were diverted to the landing site to provide close air support and force protection for the larger forces that were deployed there. It is believed that Iranians were fired upon from the air as they tried to approach the U.S. base of operation. Around midnight Sunday local time, U.S. intelligence used the colonel's emergency beacon and CIA assets to narrow down his location to a specific mountain crevice in which he had been hiding. A massive broad daylight operation was launched Sunday morning involving dozens of aircrafts and MQ-9 Reaper drones, providing a protective perimeter and striking any hostile forces that got within 2 miles of the airman's position, reported the Jerusalem Post. There were no U.S. deaths among the rescue team, and all commandos and weapons officers involved returned safely to more friendly territory, according to U.S. military officials who spoke to the New York Post. According to the unnamed U.S. official, the U.S. Air Force had to use multiple bombs to blow up all the aircrafts they abandoned at the airstrip, and the Iranians shot down 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones. Luckily, the U.S. suffered no casualties, and we had to use multiple bombs and missiles to blow up IRGC vehicles that tried to drive up the mountain, and also those that tried to drive onto the airstrip. U.S. Special Ops commandos also engaged in skirmishes with local tribesmen during the long multi-day hunt for the pilot. The injured airman had been flown to Kuwait for medical treatment in a rescue plane some 7 hours after the start of the mission. So this article over at the New York Post really highlighting exactly the operation that took place over the, probably about a 48-hour or so window, Good Friday into early portions of Sunday over in Iran, as we don't leave U.S. service members behind. And, I saw an interesting set of posts on X from individuals that were posting pictures of the planes that the United States abandoned and then decided to destroy so that the Iranians couldn't use them in the ongoing conflict, and said, well, is this really worth it? And my answer to that is, of course it is. Some stupid piece of machinery that you have to blow up in order to save an American life? Any individual that asks that question truly doesn't understand what it is to be an American. If you are genuinely asking the question, is it worth blowing up $200 million worth of planes in the Middle East, or is it better to save a U.S. service member? If you are asking that question with some level of legitimacy, you do not understand what it is to be an American. You are completely missing the mark. We are never going to leave a fellow service member behind enemy lines. That's what they might do in Europe with their loser militaries. That's what France might do. That's what Italy might do. That's what NATO or the UN might do. But that's not what the United States does. We make sure that we save and we make sure that we protect our service members. We're not just going to abandon them because we're some weak military like we see throughout Europe. What a disgusting question to even ask. What a ridiculous question to ask. Great comment coming in on our Rumble live chat. Those same people condone abortion. They don't give a damn about life. Yeah, unfortunately, that is very much the case. But what a ridiculous thing to even begin to ask. So coming up today, President Donald Trump set to host a news conference in which he will be in the White House press briefing room. That's scheduled for 1 o'clock this afternoon, as President Donald Trump will talk about the conflict that continues to play out. And the time is ticking for the Iranians, as I mentioned at the open. The president has given them a very clear deadline to Tuesday to get a deal made with the United States. And I would suspect the fact that a U.S. service member, 2 U.S. service members, were shot down and had to be rescued from inside of Iran on Friday, the president's patience are incredibly thin, and that seems to be backed up and evident by other postings that he made on social media over the weekend, with the president sending a very clear message in a post on Truth Social saying Tuesday will be power plant and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. The post there from President Donald Trump on Truth Social, not mincing any words with the Iranian regime, talking about laying out an incredible amount of devastation and destruction to the Iranian infrastructure, whether it's power plants, bridges, their oil infrastructure, essentially decimating that country's ability to operate going forward and forcing them to surrender. You know, the time is up on this. It absolutely is. The president, early on in this conflict, back in late February, made the point abundantly clear that this was going to be a short-term operation. You all had the opportunity to listen to his address to the nation that took place last week, in which he continued to highlight and stress that this thing will be wrapped up sooner rather than later. And the sooner is happening right now. The Iranians are running out of options. The leadership, which it still remains relatively unclear as to exactly who is left, who is calling the shots, who is making the decisions, all of that remains in an incredible amount of flux right now. Who is going to agree to this deal with the United States? I feel very confident in saying that I don't believe the president is playing around on this anymore. And I'm not saying that he necessarily was or has been kind of toying with the Iranians since the start, but with 2 U.S. service members being shot down on Friday, I would suspect that the president has got a very, very short rope for the Iranian regime. And so we will continue to see what happens over the next 24 hours as it relates to this deal. And unlike what could have happened, I think possibly if these 2 U.S. service members were not shot down in this incredibly successful and heroic and brave military operation did not have to unfold over the weekend like it did, I think that the discussion towards a deal would have maybe been sufficient for the president to delay these actions, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Let me make sure I'm explaining exactly what I mean by this. You know, with a negotiation, with anything, there is different phases of the negotiation. There's good, productive talks and conversations and constructive feedback and a little bit of back and forth. That's all part of the negotiation process. And for somebody like President Donald Trump, who, whether you like the guy or not, you can't say he's not a good negotiator. You can't say he's not a good deal maker. He understands that. And so I think in the past, and he still might, but I would assume in the past, he was willing to give whoever is calling the shots in Iran a little bit of runway, a little bit of leeway in this back and forth negotiation. I am a strong believer now that those doors have closed, that the Iranian regime no longer has the luxury of working towards a deal and delaying this catastrophic military action that the president is warning will take place. I suspect that door was slammed shut on Friday when the president received intel that 2 U.S. service members had to eject from an F-15E fighter jet and rescue operations took place. I do not believe that the president is joking around. I don't believe that he is just posting this on social media and doesn't actually believe it. But there's unfortunately only one party that can prove whether that is actually true or not, and that is going to be the Iranian regime. They are the ones that are going to have to decide whether they think the president is bluffing or not, whether he's holding 2 terrible cards in his hand and he is just trying to bully everybody else out of the hand. That's the question that they have to ask themselves. I will say, if I was in the position where these comments were being made against me, I would not put a lot of stock into, and I would not bet a whole lot that the president is bluffing. He understands that these military operations are not the most popular thing. Now, I'm not saying everything he does is necessarily because it is popular or it is right or he needs to do it or it is in the best interests of what the American voters think they want, because political polling and what they actually want doesn't always necessarily paint the same picture. But he knows he's got to get this thing wrapped up. And I think he and the people around him, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, many of the other high-ranking individuals, Raising Cane, all of those individuals, they understand what's going on here. And those individuals can very clearly tell whether the Iranians mean business in these negotiations or if they're trying to extend the inevitable. And I would suspect, if they don't think that good faith negotiations have progressed significantly, not just a little bit, but significantly over the last couple of days, then, as the president posted, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be no other time for negotiation. There will be no ability to backtrack once that takes place. And that's unfortunate, because it will hurt the Iranian people. You essentially decimate their power infrastructure. You decimate their physical infrastructure, bridges and roadways and things like that. That's really going to hurt the Iranian people. No question about it. The question is, are they willing to fight for freedom? Right? This conflict has now been going on for well over 30 days. And are the Iranian people that have been living under this oppressive regime, that have been living in this backwards Stone Age style society, do they truly and do they really want it? Because if so, and as the president telegraphed to them in very late February, the night that he announced these operations, it was February 28th or 27th, he made the point to the Iranian people, this is your time. You've been calling for freedom. You've been asking for somebody to liberate you. This is your shot. This is your opportunity, but you are going to have to want it. And I believe that the Iranian people actually want it. I'm sure. I can't imagine they enjoyed living under the incredibly oppressive Ayatollah. But it's now time to do something about it. And so there's obviously a lot that continues in this story, a lot that continues in this saga. It is incredibly dynamic. The information seemingly changes by the hour. The words that leave my mouth right now could be irrelevant over the next couple of hours because things are just happening in such a rapid way. We will, of course, keep an eye on all of those details, including the president's 1 o'clock press conference coming up later on today. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, posting on social media last night that the president will be holding that press conference, that news conference, from the White House press briefing room at 1 o'clock today. I'll be watching that alongside many of you. I'll cut up all of the relevant clips, all of the relevant information, and I'll bring it to you coming up tomorrow morning right here on the Nick Craig Show. So we'll grab a quick break on the other side, more reaction as to everything that continues to unfold both nationally and internationally here across the United States. We'll get into the President's Truth Social post that I just mentioned that has sparked an incredible amount of controversy from those on the political left, plus a scare hoax over the weekend that the president had been rushed to Walter Reed Medical Center, was in critical condition, never based in any sort of fact or reality, but of course Democrats, who unfortunately do wish death upon President Donald Trump and most of his supporters wishing and willing that on. We'll get into all those details coming up here in just a couple of minutes. As the Nick Craig Show continues, I want to remind you about the Law Group and thank them for their continued support, and remind you that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the Law Group. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across Eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, no matter the issue, the Law Group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, ladies and gentlemen. They're located in downtown Wilmington, and they're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088. or online, lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group. Experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. All right, quick break. We'll have more on the other side as the Nick Craig Show continues, streaming live this Monday morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Good Monday to you, and welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Hopefully you enjoyed your Easter weekend as we continue what is set to be a busy couple of days as it relates to international news and international events, as the timeline has been set by President Donald Trump for a Tuesday deal to be made by the Iranians with the United States, if not threatening to decimate their electrical infrastructure, their power grid, decimate their physical infrastructure, roads, bridges, and has even threatened, not most recently, but has threatened to even go after their oil infrastructure, which would obviously decimate the country economically without their ability to pump oil out of the ground and sell it across the globe. That would be a major problem for the Iranians as well. And the president used a bad word on social media. He used the F word. And I know, crazy, unbelievable to think that somebody could use such profane language. And to see the reaction from those on the political left is just the most hypocritical, ridiculous, stupid thing that you can imagine. Just to kind of set the stage on this, do you remember the Kathy Griffin photo from almost a decade ago, where she was pictured with a severed, bloody head depicting President Donald Trump? Do you remember that big old photo shoot? That is what the left thinks. That is what the left wants, right? They cheered on the assassination attempt that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. The political left wished that the president didn't turn his head. Don't take my word for it. Take their word for it. Go on Blue Sky. Go on Facebook and see these deranged lunatics commenting and posting about this stuff. This is not some far-off conspiracy theory. They hoped, they wished that he would have been assassinated. That's how mentally deranged those on the political left are. These are the same individuals that cheered on Charlie Kirk being shot in broad daylight at a college last year, shot and killed in front of thousands of individuals. So I say all of that to lay out that is the modern Democrat Party. That is the modern political left. That is what they want. That is what they say. They don't hide it. They actively cheer for it, saying that they were glad that Charlie Kirk got killed. They were glad that their opposition, conservatives, Republicans, were being shot and killed in public. They wished this stuff on, and then were happy when it happened. And now they're outraged over the president using the F word on social media? Really? I'm supposed to put a lot of stock. I'm supposed to put a lot of feeling into what those individuals have to say now? You've got to be kidding me. Those on the political left have lost all of their ability, or any of their ability whatsoever, to try and dictate how those on the political right act or speak. That ship has sailed, ladies and gentlemen. I am no longer interested, and I will not partake in being browbeaten into or lectured by anybody on the political left about what is appropriate to say or not. Again, what do? Take a picture with a severed mannequin bloody head that resembles Donald Trump. Wish that he had not turned his head in Butler, Pennsylvania. Cheer on the successful assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they want to lecture you? They want to lecture me about mean words? They want to tell us that we're not allowed to, or, oh my God, I'm going to clutch my pearls that the president used the F word on Truth Social. Our society is collapsing. Our democracy is over with. Are you guys deranged? Are you guys out of your mind? There's nothing that Donald Trump can say that will be over the line in comparison to everything I just laid out. He can use any singular word within the dictionary, and it will not be anywhere near as far as the political left actively wishing the death and destruction of their political opposition, which is a very real thing. We unfortunately see it way too often, and we saw it this past weekend. There were, all of the sudden, Saturday, all of these reports from idiot liberals on social media that President Donald Trump was rushed to Walter Reed Medical Center in critical condition, with others saying confirmed that he had died. Was that based in any sort of fact or reality? No, actually not at all. The president was within the West Wing of the White House all weekend with no health concerns or issues that anybody is aware of. He's got a news conference coming up later on today. So I don't really think that there's anything in that at all. And with that, with these erroneous, fake, nonsensical reports coming out over the weekend that the president was at Walter Reed and was fighting for his life, what was the reaction? Good. It's about time. Death to the king. These are the posts that were permeated through social media. And these are the same individuals that now want to lecture you and lecture me about using a bad word on social media or using a bad word in a sentence. The left, consistently, and this is nothing new, you've heard this plenty of times over the years, they're complete and total hypocrites. They have no leg to stand on. They have no moral superiority or high ground to lecture on. They just continue to make a fool of themselves. And you really want to have a conversation about the health and the well-being of the president? Really? Those on the political left? Because if my memory serves me correct, these are the same individuals that didn't have anything to say when, for months on end, there were very serious questions being asked about the health of Joe Biden. That wasn't conspiracy. That was seen when he was tripping over sandbags, falling up the stairs, being completely incapable of putting a sentence together in any sort of coherent nature. There was very little, if any, conversation from the political left on that. But now, when the president had not been seen for 72 hours, as we were told, now there's got to be serious questions. Invoke the 25th Amendment. He's got to be out of the Oval Office. We have to throw him out because he hasn't been seen in 72 hours. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was gone for weeks on end. I mean, there would literally weeks would go by where you would not hear a word from the former president of the United States. There's literally nothing. That was A-okay. That was good enough. And now, after 72 hours over Easter weekend, I'll note, at the exact same time that the United States was conducting incredibly complex, incredibly strategic military operations in Iran to save a U.S. service member whose F-15E fighter jet was shot down behind enemy lines when the president wasn't seen by them. Now they jump to, well, he's got to be dead. Must be, because we haven't seen him in 72 hours. Meanwhile, he'd been posting on social media the entire time, but that still wasn't enough. And so I bring all of this up to kind of bring this into the conversation of a lack of credibility for those in the media, the news, business across the United States. And a long-running conversation that we've had here on the Nick Craig Show about how individuals no longer know what to trust. They have completely lost confidence. They have completely lost trust in institutions across the predominantly United States to tell them what's going on. And it's all their own doing. It's because for years they ignored what was in front of their very eyes with Joe Biden, and now will rush to their news outlets and run with a completely fictitious story that after 72 hours of not physically seeing President Donald Trump, that he must be sick, he must be ill. There's no credibility left. And I believe that this credibility problem is going to be a Achilles heel for the Democrat Party as we continue through 2026. I really do. And you can look at a variety of different issues, a variety of different news reports, a variety of different factors, and begin to understand why the political left is in the position that they are right now, where they are not taken seriously, where they are not trusted. I mean, this is one of the posts from one of these moronic liberals over the weekend, Aaron Rupar, just an absolutely disgusting, despicable human being, writes this at 9:33 p.m. on April the 4th. Trump has not been seen publicly since his primetime speech on Wednesday, 72 hours and counting, despite the fact he hasn't left D.C. That was the legitimate conversation and discussion from those on the political left. And as I mentioned, Biden disappears from the public eye for weeks. Democrats have nothing to say. Trump isn't seen for 72 hours over the Easter weekend while there's a major conflict brewing in the Middle East. And the Democrats, well, where's this guy at? Well, we've got to start asking questions now. So many of these individuals are dishonest actors. They're dishonest brokers of truth. And I really do believe the textbook example of why the Democrat Party is in such bad shape right now when it comes to messaging and trust. Because independents and regular, everyday, not super political people see this stuff, right? They saw the Joe Biden cognitive decline unfolding in front of their very own two eyes. And probably the most damning of all of that was that July debate with President Donald Trump. I think it was a CNN debate, I believe, where Biden was up on stage staring out into space, would just stop speaking in the middle of sentences, never getting to a point, making, just ridiculously insane comments like we defeated Medicaid and things like that. It was a 90-minute presidential debate, and it was for the entire public to see. But before that, as many individuals, myself included, started to question, all right, we're starting to see a pattern with this guy. You were a conspiracy theorist. You were not allowed to have those discussions or conversations. You were peddling in fake news had you brought that up. And so the left has unfortunately set themselves a political trap with this. They have set themselves up for, I would argue, a pretty high level of failure because they just wanted to ignore these previous issues. And this is why the media is in such a miserable position right now across the country. So many of these news outlets, so many of these newsrooms are controlled by one viewpoint and one opinion, and that is those of the political left. They are so isolated in this echo chamber that they just can't break out of it. They can't. It's impossible for them to do so. They act in an incredibly biased, untruthful manner. They ignore issues that were very real. As we now know, the Biden cognitive issue, which caused him to literally drop out of the presidential race and substitute his vice president, Kamala Harris. A large enough issue that went underreported, or in some cases, not reported. Similar issue with the border. For months and on end, the only outlet talking about this, the only mainstream outlet talking about this on television was Fox News and Bill Malugin, who was down there each and every day bringing pictures and videos to tens of millions of Americans' homes. And so it creates this kind of death spiral for those on the political left, those in the media, where I find myself, and I think rightfully so, no longer taking anything that they say seriously. And now, of course, if you're on the political left, you'll say, well, of course, Nick, because you're just a stooge. You're just a bootlicker for Donald Trump. So, of course, you're not going to take anything they say seriously. That's just not true. And anybody that claims that has obviously never listened to me for any significant period of time. I have no problem being critical of the president that I voted for and the president I supported. And this brings us back to the fundamental difference between those on the political right and those on the political left. The greatest strength that we have on the political right as conservatives and Republicans is the ability to have free thought, is the ability to look at a situation, look at an issue, look at anything critically, analyze the information that is available, and come to a conclusion. That is why there is so much more disagreement on the right than there is on the left as it comes to politics. Because individuals are encouraged to have their own free thought. Individuals are encouraged to have their own free opinion. The left doesn't do that, right? For the most part, they sing off the same sheet of music. And when the talking points go out that, hey, don't bring up Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Don't bring up the fact that Joe Biden is shuffling around public like a Roomba, bouncing into walls, speaking incoherently, falling over things, falling up flights of stairs. When those talking points go out, the Democrats in the mainstream media followed it. And so they didn't question it. And anybody that did, they were labeled and deemed a conspiracy theorist, a tinfoil hat wearing loony. And so you've got years of that taking place. And now it, unfortunately, for the political left, has come down to, now I no longer believe or trust anything that they say, and I'm not going to. It's not because I have my blinders on. It's not because I'm indebted to Donald Trump or indebted to the Republicans or the conservatives, it's because you've lost my trust. You have acted in such a disingenuous, dishonest manner for over a decade now. And it goes back way further, but as we're talking about President Donald Trump and the modern MAGA movement, it has been a decade of dishonesty. It has been a decade of lying to the American public, fabricating stories not based in not even a shred of fact or evidence. That all of that credibility is gone. And of course, if you don't believe what the Democrats are saying through their puppets in the mainstream media, you're deemed a MAGA apologist or a maggot, one of their phenomenally catchy phrases or headlines. No, the reason I don't trust what is said on the political left is not because Donald Trump tells me. Not because anybody tells me. It's because I've seen it with my own two very eyes. I've watched the lies. I've watched the fake headlines, the fake reporting for years and years and years and years. And at a certain point, I think everybody, regardless of how involved in politics or you are or aren't, that is the normal human reaction. You don't trust somebody that consistently lies to you. Whether it's in a relationship, in a work setting, in a personal setting, or when it comes to following what's going on across the nation and across the globe. Once you lose somebody's trust, which I think the vast majority of mainstream media outlets have done in America, it is almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible to win it back. And that is the death spiral now that these media outlets are in. It's why somebody like, I believe, Barry Weiss has been appointed to the head of CBS News to try and course correct and try and build back some of that reputation, build back some of that trust. And I bring all of this up to lay out the point that this could end up being a major problem for the Democrat Party as we approach the midterm elections in November. If they are unable to get their message out there through the media because individuals have lost a significant amount of trust and confidence, which I believe is the case, that could set up a very, very bad evening for them coming up in early November. It is one of the many issues that I'll be keeping a very close eye on right here on The Nick Craig Show. So with all that said, a 1 o'clock news conference today as President Donald Trump will make his way into the White House press briefing room. I'll be watching that live. We'll have all the clips and analysis of that as well. Keeping an eye on this unfortunate 2 stabbings taking place in downtown Wilmington over the weekend as well. And some statewide news as the North Carolina General Assembly, I believe, is scheduled to gavel in for a skeleton session coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. Both the House and Senate, according to the official legislative calendar, are back today at 10 a.m. We'll see if they take on any business there as well. We'll be keeping a close eye on all of that throughout this weekend on our social media channels as well. Make sure to give a like and follow over on social media on X and on Facebook. So that's going to do it for a busy Monday morning edition of the Nick Craig Show. Want to thank the Law Group for their continued support. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. It's also available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. That's going to do it for a Monday edition. We'll be back here tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.